Awesome. Well, Krista here with Magnetic Magnificent Events, and we are continuing on with this series of small businesses that are changing lives. And I have the pleasure of doing an interview today with none other than Steve Bacon. He will do a much better introduction of his own name. And if you follow him, you'll get that down really good. So I usually tune it out on that point. I'll let him handle it. But Chief Coaching Officer of Belief Theory. And so, Steve, please introduce yourself to our group.
Hey, what's going on, group? It's your coach. Wait for it. Steve Bacon.
Exactly why I let him do that and not me. So there it is.
She will do it at some point. I promise you. It's you. I promise you. Everybody does it. Everybody's doing it.
And build up to it. Yeah. So that being said, Steve, it is an awesome pleasure to have you on here. Been watching you grow for years, been watching you develop this business. And I truly believe, as somebody who is an entrepreneur and, busy and working and understanding how to elevate, this is something very important that you do, not just for entrepreneurs, but anybody looking to really take their life to a different level. So tell me a little bit about Belief Theory, 1, and 2, what got you here? How did you end up starting this company?
So actually, that's good, because both the story wraps up into what we do and why we do it. So a brief history on me, and it'll explain why I do what I do. Okay. So my mom got addicted to crack 6 months after I was born. I went to 14 different schools growing up. So imagine being the new kid every single year. Yeah. I was molested as a kid. I was abused as a kid. I have specific memories of my mother leaving me in crack houses as she jumped out the window and, did whatever she did. And at 8 years old, my father showed up out of the clear blue sky. I had no idea who this Chico DeBarge looking mother was.
It actually
and he shows up and he says, "You coming to live with me?" Now, the problem with that was my mother never told me that this guy was coming to get me. When she usually went off on her binges, she would, let me know that she was dropping me off at my grandmother's house. But this time, she didn't tell me that somebody was coming. Mm-hmm. And so when this guy decides that he's going to take me, I start kind of acting out. And then he gives me a whooping. And I'm like, hold on, bro. First of all, I don't even know you to be hitting me like this. First of all. Yeah. Second of all, where is my mama?
Right.
And to make a long story short, he took me to live with him. And I developed this visceral hatred for my mother and this disrespect for my grandmother, because how does an 8-year-old process that? Right? With the limited life experience that an 8-year-old has, and 8-year-old children take everything personal and they're highly emotional. The logical part of the brain isn't fully developed yet. So, and we take everything personal because that's all we know, right? So I created in that moment this belief that later on caused me to be abusive in my future relationships. And this belief was to never trust a woman who says she loves you.
Okay.
Because as human beings, we make everything mean something. And if you don't control the meaning for that child will create their own meaning.
Of course, yeah.
Based on their limited life experience.
Right.
So fast forward, my dad and I split when I was 14. We got into a huge fight. I threatened to kill him. He sent me back to live with my grandmother. And then right after that, I took off to the military, married the first girl who said she loved me, was physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive to her until she got the courage to leave. I'm not proud of it. It's part of my story, though.
Right.
Didn't know why it was happening at the time. It was just, I just thought she was cheating with no proof. I just thought she was cheating all the time. No proof whatsoever. But in my mind, and for those of you that are watching, you're a human being, so you do this too, right? If I can connect the dots in my head, that should happen.
Exactly. Everything will conspire that as the truth. Yeah, absolutely.
If I can connect the dots, it happened, right?
Yeah.
And so she got the courage to leave. I got extremely depressed. I put a loaded gun in my mouth and pulled the trigger. And the only thing that saved me was the safety was still on.
Wow.
After that, I realized I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. But things got worse. I started drinking heavily to mask the pain that I was feeling, and I didn't know how to work through. They sent me to anger management in the military, but then I was like, I'm not angry. Something wrong with y'all. My anger is valid. Y'all the ones with problems.
Of course, yeah. Without ever going back to look at the root of it, but yes.
Never, right? Especially at 18, 19 years old. Never. I am not the problem. My anger is valid. People have screwed me over. Mm-hmm. And found myself in trouble, felon at 19 years old. Mm-hmm. And my military career kind of dwindling after that. Got married for the second time to the second girl who said she loved me, right? Looking for love in all the wrong places. So here I am, 20 years old, and I am married twice, or damn near divorced twice, mm-hmm. potential suicide, or tried to commit suicide, drinker, all this trauma, abusive, all by the age of 20.
Right.
And then I got introduced to personal development. So this guy named Hank shows up, takes me to a network marketing meeting, mm-hmm. and I really didn't care too much for the money, but these people talk differently.
Right.
And he said that if you just change what you believe about yourself, everything will change. I had no idea what he meant, but it was enough interest there to like, well, I don't want to kill myself and I don't want to live miserable for the rest of my life. So there might be something to these books things, because I'm starting to hear people who had worse stories than me that are going to live amazing lives. And I'm like, how? Like that literally became my question. How did you do that?
Right.
So I got really heavily into personal development, like addicted to personal development, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And I was reading everything I could get my hands on. I was listening to everything, going to all the workshops. I mean, I was dedicated. And people kept saying, you just got to believe. You got to believe. And I'd be like, yeah, what the is that?
Right. Where do I find that?
What does that actually mean? What is a belief? You got to believe stronger. What is that? So for years, I literally just like begged, what is that? Now I started to see my self-image change and what I thought was possible for myself, but didn't realize like I still had all these traumas and everything that was keeping me from, it's kind of like this. It's kind of like feeling like I was crucified. My values and what my soul wanted was pulling me one way, mm-hmm. but my beliefs were pulling me in the opposite direction.
Okay.
People don't understand the difference between the two. Your values are what's most important to you. That's what your soul cries for,
right?
For you to be fulfilled. But your beliefs are what you were taught.
Okay.
And beliefs drive human behavior. So even though your soul wants this, you will deny it based on what you were taught. Mm-hmm. So you're feeling crucified because you never feel like you really go anywhere in life. And that's the space that I was really in.
Okay.
And so once and so the other question I had was, do I have to live with this trauma or do I have to cope with it like the way they say?
Yeah.
Right? I didn't like therapists because they just kept making me feel like a bigger victim. And I didn't like it. It wasn't, let's get to the root cause. It was, well, how does that make you feel? And it makes me feel I don't want to deal with this no more.
And I don't want to feel like this anymore. So let's not talk about how I feel.
That's right. And then so 45 minutes go by, you leave me in shambles. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, let's pick this up next week. And then I come back next week, but we're not talking about picking up where we were last week. Now we talk about the shit that I had to deal with for the last 7 days. So we really never get anywhere. And now we're going in a fucking circle for 15 years. And I'm spending $300 an hour.
Right. Yeah.
So I was like, do I have to live with this? Or is there another way? And then I found neurolinguistic programming and then hypnotherapy and then all these other modalities of healing. And I'm just like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
And then I started learning how to do breakthrough sessions and take people through these timeline therapy processes. And I'm just like, there's people literally getting over 40 years worth in a matter of hours. Mm-hmm. Why isn't this information being taught to our community? We just keep passing down generational trauma from one generation to the next because we've been taught how to cope rather than heal.
Right.
And coping is like having a trash can full of shit sitting in your living room, learning how to deal with the smell. Healing is jumping in that some butt naked, cleaning it out with bleach
Terrible.
Cleaning it out and pushing it outside. It may take a lot more work, a lot more commitment, maybe a little bit more expensive. But when you're done, you're done.
Yeah. So pause there. Thank you for bringing us up to this point.
Because that is why we do what we do.
Yes. And so in deciding to form your own company, what made you take that execution? What tipping point was there where you felt like you had enough to be able to go and give this message back?
Well, the last network marketing company I was in, I was doing okay, but I kept seeing good people leave. And that really pissed me off because I knew these people wanted it. And I got tired of leaders telling me, well, you just got to concentrate on the ones that want it. And I'm like, she literally fucking cried in my eyes. Cried her eyes out in my arms about why she needs this. So it's not like she doesn't want it. There's something happening inside of her mind that's keeping her from doing what she wants to do. And nobody wants to figure it out because it wastes too much time.
Right.
So I literally just quit. I stepped away. I was like, they keep telling me I care too much about people. I do care too much about people, and I care for a reason. So let me step back and find out why.
Yeah.
And then I read a book by John Whitmore called Coaching for Performance, and that changed everything for me. I realized that was the part of the business that I liked. I liked coaching and mentoring. I didn't really care for the sales part as much. I loved training and teaching. And so once I found NLP and hypnotherapy and that whole world, married it with the personal development that I had been reading for the last 15 years, I was like, wait a minute. This stuff that we read in these books and we hear on the stage goes a hell of a lot deeper. Some of these people don't even really know what they're talking about. They just repeating this because it sounds good, but they don't really understand the science behind what they're being saying, like be, do, have.
Right.
People don't understand that is the most important concept you could ever learn in your entire life. But we just go over it because it's a nice slide. But not understanding that's the,
I'm going to interject here and just say, side note for those that are watching us for the first time, I am a student of network marketing and of personal development. And so as I make facial expressions, they are not to be made disrespectfully, but I concur with what Steve is saying. So a couple of little side pieces there where I get that. And so let me ask you, Steve, in your development of belief theory.
Feel free to rein me in if I just go way off. Feel free. So
I'm curious because you mentioned hypnotherapy, you mentioned the neurological, you mentioned personal development. So in how you formed your company, like what process do you take people through if they were to sign up and say, look, I'm stuck, I don't know. I know you're kind of like the unstuck coach. What is kind of the way that you formed it? Did you take kind of the best of all of these types and did your own kind of mixture? How does that work?
Absolutely. And still adding to it till this day. I'm forever a student. But the first thing that we do is, so when people come to me, I firstly start with just 20 minutes, what's going on.
Yeah.
And then I take them to a deep dive if I feel like there's something that I could do for them. And it's usually about 2 hours. And in that 2 hours, I help them figure what it is exactly that they want. They understand there's a belief, but then we actually find what that belief is.
Okay.
So there's typically one sentence running somebody's life in any given moment.
That's small of a thing.
That's small of a thing. So let's go back to what I talked about at 8 years old, right? Perfect example. Anytime you experience an intense amount of emotion, your mind takes a snapshot of whatever it is that causes that.
Makes sense.
For me at 8 years old, it was a woman who says she loves me. Right? Because that is the most intimate and vulnerable thing that can happen, or that a child experiences, is that relationship between them and their caregiver. So in that moment, my mind took a snapshot. My wife at the time, at 17 years old, by the way, just was a proxy. I realized in retrospect. She represented my mother all over again, which is why I never trusted. It's not that I didn't trust her. I didn't trust what she represented.
Right.
So that one sentence, never trust a woman who says she loves you, controlled my entire relationships.
Right.
Right? So I help people find that one sentence. So whether it's an entrepreneur and it's like, oh, I'm not good enough, but yeah, not good enough for what? So I take them through a process. Basically, I take their subconscious mind and I just kind of unscrew it to see what's in there.
Right.
And and I could always tell when we got to the right one, because as soon as we get to that one belief, they completely break down. We've peeled that onion all the way back. And their whole life starts to make sense in that moment.
Right.
So right after that, now that we got that, well, that belief is held by stories. So there are certain memories that you have that's propping this thing up.
Right.
Now we go through a full breakthrough day where we pull up all the stories. I mean, it's a long day. We pull up all the stories that supports that belief and we get rid of each one of them one by one. So by the time we're done that day, that belief has nothing to stand on. Now your mind is open like, well, if I don't believe that, now what? Well, now you get to create who you want to be. Yeah. So the second phase is now we go into who do they want to become? We figure out who they want to be 20, 30 years from now, and then build that character. So then I teach them about belief systems. I teach them about values. I teach them about contradictions that make you feel crucified. And we reinvent who they want to become. Because people who know me now, 10 years ago will be like, I didn't know this guy. Like I literally had a guy who's a police captain who knew me 10 years ago, who's now a private client of mine. And when I told him the price, his wife goes, the Steve I know ain't worth 20 grand. Like she flat out said it and I respect it.
Right.
And I said, yeah, but the Steve you know is dead.
Yeah, not the same.
He died. I forgot to invite you to the funeral. He died. I constructed this man.
Right.
And I made sure that his values and beliefs were in alignment with who he says he is. So he operates congruently at all times. I do that with my clients after they figure out who they want to be and we've got rid of all the bad stories. Now they see their whole past. Imagine having all of your past memories, but no emotional attachment to them. How dope would that be?
Yeah.
That's what I do with my clients. They literally have all the same memories, but they have a completely different perspective of those traumatic memories. And now it feels like it just happened to somebody else. And now they're free to go create whoever they want to be. And we just match up their values and beliefs in every area of life to that person and set them on their way. And I literally have clients tripling and quadrupling their income, single moms that then become business owners that then go making, but then they also have parents, grown ass people reconnecting with their parents because now they see their parents in a different light. Like the money's great, but the relationships that I've watched mend as a result of the work has been amazing.
Yeah.
Including my mother's and mine. I was my mother's coach for 1.5 years before she died.
Yeah.
Got her off drugs, in school, living her best life before she passed away. Completely healed our relationship. Now I'm doing the same for my father.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, that's good to hear with that. And I do remember seeing that with your mom too, being around for that. Which that was going to be my next question is kind of like, is there an ideal client for you? But it sounds like it doesn't really matter. Just anybody really passionate, looking to make change for themselves. Or is there a particular type that you prefer?
Yes, that's two parts. Okay. Yes, no. Yes, I'm open to anyone who reaches out.
Okay.
Who I'm gunning for, though, are Black and brown mothers who are entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And the reason being is because I now know without a shadow of a doubt that generational trauma can be stopped in one generation.
Yeah.
Maybe two. And in our communities, it's the mothers who are raising these children.
It's true.
This current generation, I will teach, I will train. But those mothers that's got this next generation coming up, those are the ones that I want to really work with. Because in the movie King Richard, what I loved about it was he knew he had trauma, but it stopped with him.
Yeah, yeah. He made a conscious effort for that not to continue on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
And the only reason why we don't is because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And we don't listen to nobody that don't look like us. Period.
It's so
Tony Robbins can go teach the entire Black community all of this, and they'd be like, nope, he white.
yeah, no,
Can't
can't even see the message, can't hear it. Yep.
even see the message.
Yes, I understand that, and I can see that. And so it sounds like a little bit of your business is also a passion project. Like, it seems safe to say that even if you weren't making money from it, let's say all you were doing was getting paid from commercials or something, you'd still be doing this. Is that correct?
Oh, you have any idea how many people have gotten free stuff from me? Because it's not even passion. It's what I've discovered for myself is literally the reason why I live.
Yeah. Now, another side question is, as a self-proclaimed like empath, how do you deal with dealing with people's emotions? How do you not hold on to that after?
Girl. So, listen.
You heal.
Girl. People like, Steve always going on vacation for a fucking reason. Okay? For a reason. When I first started, it was not easy. I could do a breakthrough session for 2 days and be dead for a week.
Yeah.
Because I literally have taken it. What people don't understand is energy holds weight. Negative energy holds weight. So when I take that negative energy off of someone, I would completely put it on me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I wouldn't know how to get it out. Over the years, though, I've been doing this about 6 years now. It took me about 3 years before I learned how to start to let that go afterwards. And now I'm able to let it go during.
That's good. Okay.
So during the process, because what I used to do, and I'll tell you the difference. The difference is I used to buy into the stories.
Okay.
So I would feel with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because I've done so many,
yeah,
and including my own, I don't go into the stories like that at all.
Right.
So I will tell you straight up, I am not the easiest person to coach with.
I'm sure not.
Because I've been through so much.
Yeah.
You can't really tell me or try to make me buy your victim story. So right. My clients be sitting there sobbing and I'd be like, are you done?
Right.
So we can continue. Yeah. Because I understand how you feel. I also know what's keeping you there.
Right.
So can we move on so that you no longer feel this way? Right. So I've learned to move them forward rather than staying in that moment with them.
In terms of the timing, is somebody not healed, but is like one session generally enough for people, like one all day deep dive, or do you see that people kind of need continuation of it?
Oh, I still have coaches. Like I have 2 coaches right now, right? Yeah. That is a net. So the first part to that question, it's a never ending.
Okay.
That's number 1, right? Like for instance, real talk, just epiphany I had 2 days ago. I realized that one of the reasons why I wasn't going full-fledged in the direction I wanted to take my company is because I didn't believe I was Black enough to do it. You laugh, but I'm serious. When I wanted
to make a joke about like tanning beds or something, but like
yeah. When I was a kid, people don't. That's why I want people to understand conditioning.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, because I wasn't into what everybody else was into, mm-hmm. I was labeled as white as a kid. Oh, you ain't Black, you ain't Black, you ain't Black, you ain't Black.
Right.
And then getting around other cultures, people would be like, oh, you're not Black. Like, wait, I didn't really get what that meant.
Yeah.
So 20 years of being told, oh, you're not Black, you're not Black, you're not Black. That had an effect on me to where I wasn't even willing to take all this knowledge that I have on healing back to my community because I didn't believe that I was Black enough to do it.
And even though we're not here to talk about that, that is another topic within the community of that separation between your Blackness or lack thereof, which I think is an interesting topic on a whole like side note. Having raised Black kids, like I've experienced that from 4 of them being very different colored and very different experiences they all had. So Yeah. And again, I think that's where that it's like the passion project, the calling, the whatever, like this is what you were bound to do at the end of the day, like with all of it stacking up. And so I love the fact that it's your own company. I love that it's entrepreneurship. So last kind of question for you is now that you
I just
see
want to answer that. I want to answer the last question. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Continue.
To answer the last question, it's ongoing, right? Because it did, and I brought that example up because to show you there's still I need to work out, right? So I'm not some guy that figured it all out and now I'm going to teach everybody. No, I'm just a little bit further along than you, right?
Do you do the continuation coaching for people then too?
Yes. So that's what I wanted to say is some people only need to get unstuck and they'll come to me for one session. I tell people all the time, one session to change your whole life. Because I'll go deeper than any other coach will ever go with you. Because I've been to the bottom of the ocean. A lot of coaches don't want to touch the type of shit that I touch. Because they, A, if they trigger you, they don't know how to get you out. B, they've never experienced it. And so they don't know what to do in that situation. Or C, they have experienced it and they are a wounded healer and haven't healed from it themselves. Yeah. So they don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
So usually when people come to me, my coaching is so potent. Like I'm just so direct and I know exactly where to look. Mm-hmm. One conversation usually does it for people.
Okay.
Then there are people, because there's just something, there's one thing that one hump they're trying to get over. So I don't sell people on packaging when I know one session will do it for them. Mm-hmm. But there's also people who go, look, I know that there's so much more in the tank and I want my higher self to take over. Mm-hmm. Yeah, then I work with them for 6 months because then I introduce them and help them become literally their higher selves.
Love that.
We don't just talk about it, we actually do the work to become it.
Which kind of leads into the kind of last and final question for you is what's next for you? Where do you see this going? What's, 2 years down the road? How big do you want this belief theory empire to be?
So I actually have a full 10-page manifesto on that.
Well, give me the introduction paragraph.
No, a couple things. One, I want 90 schools built in 50 states.
Okay.
Belief theory, success academy, purpose-driven education.
Okay.
We need about $1 billion to do that because each location is going to take about 10 million to run. And that's the long term.
And in that, you're going to be teaching people how to basically be you.
Yeah. So that's the other thing.
Yeah.
I want to duplicate myself 1,000 times.
Yeah.
I want to teach people the same process so that they can go do it in their communities. I want to create. So part of what I'm doing is I want to take mental health out of the hands of rich people and put it back into the hands of the community by teaching them and working with where we are, not where we think we should be. For instance, mental health counselors right now in Black and brown communities are hairstylists, hairdressers, personal trainers.
You're not wrong.
I'm not wrong. Barbers, I know I'm not wrong, right? So teaching them belief theory allows them to stop giving out bad fucking advice to everybody who sits in their chair and actually be able to create a safe space for people while they're talking. Instead of yapping your mouth, learn how to ask powerful questions so that this person can actually leave with something productive.
Right.
Rather than just your opinion. All men ain't shit. All women are this.
They're feeding right into that bad programming.
Right into it. Yeah. You have, right? Same thing for pastors, same thing for ministers. Where do we already go for mental health? Let's train those people. Currently, I have contracts with Boys and Girls Club. I have contracts with YMCAs. I have contracts with different cities because I'm teaching their teachers.
Yeah,
belief
so important. Yeah.
Right? So we want to create this level of education on a mass scale where we are taking the leaders of our communities, the teachers of our communities, and teaching them the principles. Again, I didn't make this shit up. Right. I didn't create it. I just took the best of what a person needs to know to take control of their own mind and just put it in a very simple, easy way for people to understand it. That is my gift, to make the complicated simple.
Right.
So We want to build schools. We want to build consulting across the country so that we have a belief theory representative or somebody who has gone and can teach it in every after school program, every boys and girls club, on every football field, everywhere where we are. We want to rebrand mental health in our community.
Love it.
And make it less about there's something wrong with you and more about who do you want to become. This is the shit you got to deal with in order to become that. So we call our seminars chocolate covered carrots. We give you what you need wrapped inside what you want. We're going to talk about money and big houses and all that. And then as soon as you get in, I'll be like, so let's talk about the mama issues, them daddy issues. Let's talk about all that shit. Mm-hmm. We call it chocolate covered carrots. But overall, I want Steve Bacon to become irrelevant.
Okay.
I want belief theory to get so big and so a way of life, of emotional intelligence, knowing, watching how we talk to our kids, watching how other people talk to our kids, like literally taking control. We've been taught how we were conditioned. We never were taught how to recondition.
Right.
I want to teach Black and brown people how to recondition. We need to stop looking for a fucking savior, because when we realize, when we look inside, we are our own saviors.
Yeah.
But it's also the reason why Jesus said, become childlike, not childish. Mm-hmm. Because what that means is to go back to before you were taught all the bullshit. If you, Krista, you raise children. Yep. Think about how awesome babies are when they come into the world full of love, joy, peace, well-being. A baby is like this iPhone when it first came out of Apple. Mm-hmm. It worked perfectly until I started putting my shit on it and it slowed it down. It's the same thing with children. They come out with, they don't have a fear of no, they don't have a fear of failure, they're not shy, they mimic, they do what's necessary, they're literally perfect. Mm-hmm. They use their imagination properly, they use all their mental faculties properly. They're straight out of the manufacturer. Mm-hmm. And then we start putting our beliefs and traumas and everything on them, and all of a sudden, they just like we was, and all that potential is gone. I'd like to put an end to that. Yeah. By teaching parents.
I had the pleasure of raising my granddaughter from about 6 months to a year. And that time, there's so many things that I can see in there. And I was so conscious about what other things are being said to her, even if it's like the simplest thing of, you know, playing with her belly and being like, oh, you little chubby belly. Like, it doesn't matter that she can't understand you. That stuff is planted there. And as I shared with you, you know, having gone through hypnotherapy and going all the way back and being able to talk to like my 1-year-old self and like reframing what that was and understanding it just made so much more sense. So I fully support the work you're doing. And again, for anybody as a small business that is literally changing lives, like this is where we're at. Oh, I do have one quick question. Did you see a shift during the pandemic of more people coming to you looking for answers because they stopped themselves for so long?
100%. I'm telling you, my business took off during the pandemic. We were doing good. We did great when the pandemic came, because now it forced people to pay attention to themselves.
And I think that's a beautiful thing of where our society is shifting a little bit. You know, it's like there's a lot that's going on. There's a lot of, you know, dissension. And then there's kind of over here a group of people that are saying like, no, we have the power to make it better. And you're leading the charge on that. And especially going into your community and having that be a passion point. So it was an absolute pleasure, Steve. Last thing, can you tell people how they can connect with you if they want to? Website, outreach, whatever.
Belieftheory.com is the easiest way. We are under construction with it, but the old site is still up. Belief.theory on Instagram, or Coach Steve Bacon on Facebook. That's about it.
Perfect. Well, it was awesome. Thank you so much, my friend, for letting me interview you and share this with everybody.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I definitely look forward to seeing more of your successes and supporting this as it continues to grow. And until next time, stay magnificent.
Stay magnificent.